A very good evening to one and all, and a hearty welcome to today's session. As you all know, we all have gathered over here as to learn good techniques, at the same time, wonderful concepts of improving the reading comprehension skills among the students, especially in the language English. So, today we have our beloved resource person and the coordinator of Hyderabad region for SNTTC, Ms. Jyoti Iyer with us. Ma'am is going to enlighten us with few more techniques other than what we have been following all these years to improve the reading comprehension skills among the students. Let us welcome ma'am. The screen is all yours, Jyoti ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, shall we wait or shall we start?
Let us start, ma'am.
Can someone just confirm you can see the presentation?
Yes, Jyoti ma'am, we can see.
Oh, thank you, sir. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Nice to see you. It's been a break for me. I'm sure you all have been attending other sessions, whether from SNTTC or elsewhere. And I'm sure you've had that interaction. But I've missed this, so I'm glad to be back. And I would like to start with our session. As a CBSE teacher, what ends up happening, actually, I would say for all of us as teachers, what ends up happening is we kind of become hyper focused on things that we can teach, that can be predictable. So we teach our lessons, we teach our grammar, we teach how to write, but comprehension is somewhere that we kind of drop the ball. And this is not deliberate. We don't do it on purpose, obviously. But what ends up happening is that somewhere we think that, well, I cannot predict what is going to come in the exam. So how far can I prepare the child for it? So there is almost a sense of, okay, I'll do all of this. And then when whatever time is left, I'll provide for comprehension. I've seen this amongst my colleagues. And honestly, I have observed that happening to me as well, that if I have to choose between, say, teaching an extra grammar topic and teaching reading comprehension, I would probably prefer teaching grammar, thinking that, okay, that is a guaranteed 2 marks in the exam, right? So let's see how to get over that and how to, honestly, we do have a time restraint. So how to get things done within the time that is provided to us. As usual, be participative, be attentive, be ready. And when I say be ready, I'm hoping that at least for the opening small activity that I have planned for you, you all do have answers. Ravikant sir, that includes you. I want you to answer these questions as well. So let's
Sure,
see. I have this small little passage for you. I don't know if everyone can see very clearly. If it's on a phone screen, maybe it might be too small. So I'm just going to read it out for you. It says, Iggy squinted as he tried to see through the holes in the ski mask. He could make out the large bag on the counter. The frightened woman who put it there now had both hands raised. As he took the bag off the counter, Iggy tipped an imaginary hat to the woman. The jest did not brighten her demeanor. Iggy exited the first set of doors but stopped in the vestibule. Soon, the windows of the building pulsated with blue and red lights. Iggy hurriedly walked back into the building. I'll give you a minute or two to go over it again in case you need to, and then I'll ask you a few questions. Very specifically, 4 questions. I have only 4 questions. All right. So here are the questions that I have for you. What is Iggy doing in this building? Anyone? If you want, I can go back to the passage as well. Just let me know. Punita ma'am?
I have no idea.
Would you like me to go back to the passage?
Okay, let's.
The question was, I'll remind you, what is Iggy doing in this building? Aradhna ma'am?
Ma'am, I'm really not sure, but is it like Iggy is selling items?
Okay. All right. Anyone else? I'm deliberately not answering that question because if I get an answer better than that, then I don't want to give it up. No, that's a ski mask, ma'am. Okay. I deliberately took this passage because there's a very important thing for us to understand. When we say ski mask, we in India don't have a concept of what is a ski mask. We don't know. Most of us, unless you've been watching a lot of English movies, we don't know what a ski mask is. Many a times we do this to our children, where we give them a passage where we are expecting them to not just comprehend but infer things out of it. But now let me tell you, a ski mask is that in movies they show where there is this very thin kind of mask which it won't completely hamper your view, but the person who's looking at you can't really tell your features. So basically robbers wear these masks. He's a robber, and that is why he couldn't see through this, he tried to see very carefully through the holes in the ski mask. You know what we in India call like a bandar topi, that kind of a thing. So imagine we often do this to our children where we say, you should know this. How do you not know this? Right? But remember, we have to ask ourselves, what is it we are testing? So what are we going to learn today? I wanted to I'm sure not all teachers do this, but we tend to sometimes do it very unconsciously. So I wanted to kind of give ourselves a taste of our own medicine, and then we'll move on to what are we going to learn today. So we are going to learn a couple of things today. One of them is we will talk about the 3-phase reading model. So before we read, what should we learn? During reading, what do we do? And after reading, how do we kind of process our information? How do we do it? And then how do we teach children to do the same? The second thing I wanted to talk about is differentiated input, because there are children who are advanced learners, there are children who are visual learners, there are children who are auditory learners. What is it that you personally would be able to do in order to make sure you cater to all the needs of these different children? Third thing I wanted to talk about is the integration of technology. Probably I will focus a little less on this, honestly, because many a times we are not in control of how much technology we can integrate in our classes, because honestly it's kind of dependent on the resources available to us. So I'll also talk about certain resources which you can use regardless of whether you have any special technology available. And finally, probably most important, the challenges and the solutions. Because yes, we know what to do, But can we really do it? And what are the challenges we face? How do we take care of it in spite of those challenges? Because, you know, they say there are people who will find solution to every problem, and there are people who will find problems to every solution. So let's be the first kind of person, right? All right. So let's start with the beginning, the three-phase model. So as I already said, there are three phases when we read. See, this is something that happens even when you're reading for just for fun. I'm sure as language teachers, we all read, correct? Excuse me. As language teachers, I'm hoping we all read just for entertainment as well. And even when we do that, what do we do? Even before reading, sometimes we judge a book literally by the cover, right? We look at the book and we say, okay, this cover looks like nice. Now let me read the excerpt. Then we read the excerpt and decide if I really want to read the book. Maybe I decide on the basis of the author. Maybe I decide on the basis of the title, an intriguing title. Maybe I'll pick up that book. These kind of things that we do for our regular reading, we need to teach children to do the same in their active, like in their comprehension as well. So how do we do that? One of the things to do is to activate prior knowledge. So the ski mask example that I gave was actual active prior knowledge that you needed in order to understand this. So even when you're setting your passage for writing, for reading comprehension, you need to make sure that your passage has no such things which requires prior knowledge, which you are not even provided for the child. It would not be fair, correct? Similarly, you also need to train the child to activate their own prior knowledge. So for instance, one of the activities you can do for this is simply ask them to read the title of the passage and let them guess what this passage might be about. So suppose a passage says roller coaster, a history. Now, is this the history of roller coasters, or is this the fact that history conceptually, metaphorically is a roller coaster? It goes up and down. What do you think that would be? Roller coaster, a history. Pushplata ma'am, the second one. Okay. Anyone else? Sorry, ma'am.
Sorry, ma'am, I did not get your question.
Yeah, so I said that suppose the title of a passage is roller coaster, a history. So there are two options I'm giving you. One is this should be a passage about the history of roller coasters. The second is that it is metaphorically the fact that history in general is like a roller coaster. Things go up and down.
So,
which one is it?
I also think it is the second one, ma'am.
Okay. Don't you think then it would be history a roller coaster?
It's probably, I think it's probably the way I read it. What would you say?
Sure. So again, see, auditory and visual. And to be honest, if I had put it in front of you, you probably would have thought of it in a different manner. Now, do you see how these things, these tiny things that we think, "Arey bol to diya, samajh nahi aa raha hai." No, we also don't get it. The reason is that there is so much importance in every word, every punctuation that we have on paper. That is why it is called reading comprehension, not listening comprehension. Listening comprehension also exists, but it's a completely different thing. We are looking for different things there, correct? So we need to make sure that we are activating prior knowledge. We are setting expectations. So one of the ways, especially for older kids, one of the ways I often like to do this is before they start reading the passage, I tell them to go over the questions. There are some people who don't agree with this, and I'll tell you the pros and cons of this. The pro is that once you read the questions, you know what you're looking for in the passage. The con is that there are some children who have this habit of getting stuck with the words. So they will not actually understand the question. They will just look for those words and blindly copy that portion of the text and put it down as an answer, which will sometimes not be the answer, because there are questions where the words exist, but the question being asked is completely different. Sometimes a twisted question. So there are pros and cons to this, and sometimes you might want to give this as a tip for some children and not for the other children. I will not be able to tell you who those children are. You as a teacher will be the best judge to decide that. Another thing is introducing critical vocabulary, and I'm sure you've seen this, right? There are many passages where the certain vocabulary words are already given. Those are done for a very specific reason, because you want the children to know these words. Without that, the comprehension of the passage will suffer. Correct? So if I had explained what a ski mask is, I'm going to go back to that passage again and again. So if I had explained what a ski mask is at the very beginning, I'm sure there would have been no confusion there. Correct? All right. So here we talk about the pre-reading strategy. So before you start reading, you think about, what do I know about this topic? First, you read the title, try to guess what it might be. You try and think about, what do I know about this topic in general. Third, you try to make sure that if the child is ready for it, ask them to go through the questions and then be ready to look for those particular answers in the reading passage. And finally, if any words are given, think about why those words are given. How important is it for the understanding of the passage? These are your pre-reading strategies. This happens before the child even starts reading the passage. So think how important reading comprehension, how complicated reading comprehension as a task is. It's not very easy. Be a little patient with the children. Next is your active reading strategies. So here, this is while reading. What do you do? Obviously, one, probably most important, maintain engagement. That means make sure that you are able to engage the students in what they are reading. There are a couple of ways to do this. We will talk about this in a little more detail when we talk about the differentiated input. But generally speaking, what happens is, many times we lose children when introducing the reading comprehension. So one thing I would say is that if the art of reading comprehension has been taught well at a younger age, children tend to pick those skills and develop on them. So I would especially want to talk about this to second grade teachers, third grade teachers, where we start with proper reading comprehension. These are not questions where, in first grade, maybe we would give a short passage, 3 sentences, and ask what was the name of the dog. But by third grade, we can ask questions where they can't genuinely just copy and paste. They have to think a little and frame it. Ideally, you would like them to frame it in their own words, right? So at this stage, if you have introduced the passage well to them, read it with the proper intonation as if you're reading a story, maybe sometimes show them slides instead for visual learners. All of these things I'll get into a little more detail in the next part. But all of this is to make sure that the child is able to maintain engagement with your passage. If that is done, if the child's interest is maintained, then half your battle is won. Next is, you need to monitor comprehension. Now this, I would say, you can do. This is one of the things which will help you with your time management as well, because this is one of the things that you can do even as you're generally doing your regular stories or your lessons as you're teaching. And I think most of us as language teachers, we do this often, right? We read 4 sentences and then ask, so why was Rohan sad? Rohan was sad because he could not go out to play, right? We do this. And this, believe it or not, is probably the biggest, the biggest improver of comprehension. Because I would say it also keeps children on their toes, because otherwise, if you're reading in a monotone, especially, children tend to doze off or get lost in their own thoughts. And let's be fair, we also used to get lost in our own thoughts. So at least the least we can do is make sure that we give them incentive for not doing that. So monitor the comprehension at regular intervals. And I would also say, call out random people. Okay, this person, tell me what happened here. This person, tell me what was the name of the dog. Things like that, right? Next is process the information. So this will come at a later stage. I'm not talking about second, third graders. Here we will talk about maybe a little older children. So here, maybe 7th, 8th grade, I'm sure you have noticed that there will be some questions, at least maybe 1 or 2 questions only, but some questions at least, where there will be these interesting little tidbit of information just sprinkled here and there. And there'll be questions where the answer is not there directly in the passage, but you have to understand. So unless you understood the passage, you won't be able to answer the question. Correct? Okay. Let me give you an example. Very short idea. A passage which talks about a person who's outside the door with his head in his hand. And then another person comes and says, "You did it again, didn't you?" And he says, "Yes." So he says, "Okay, I'll give you." So the other person
Jyoti ma'am.
let's face it, some of us have also done this, right? Lost the key. So probably personal experience. I for one have lost a million keys in my life. My mother says I should have a recurring account just for the amount of keys I have lost. So considering that, that is something that most of us have had experience with, which is why it is inference, but it is inference based on previous knowledge and a combination of pre-reading and active reading skills. Correct? So that is how your processing of information. So you got all this information. Person is outside the house. They are, they seem to be lost. They seem to be sad. They had their head in their hand. They had to call their wife to come home. The wife was kind of yelling at them. And somebody else also said, "Oh, did you do it again?" So that means this person is in the habit of losing the key. Correct? So these kind of clues are there. So when it comes to you teaching this to children, what you need to do is make sure that you kind of highlight those clues. Like I did, I said the first part and then I highlighted, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened. And that helped you focus on the right things. In the beginning, that might feel like spoon feeding, but what will end up happening is slowly and gradually the child learns to focus on these things. Now, coming to your post-reading skills. Here, you are synthesizing information. So much information was given. Was it important that this other person gave them the phone? Maybe because they did not have the phone. But if that other person wasn't there, would you still be able to guess what happened? If they had the phone with them, it would change, right? So those kind of things, you have 10 things, 10 points made. You're going to synthesize it into 1 point, one answer that has been asked. That is your post-reading skill. Another thing that you need to do is evaluating the, see, if you think about it, most of us tend to think of, think of things in the sense that, oh, is this valid information? Right? How do we know the information given is valid or not? Are we supposed to trust the information given to us in the passage. So sometimes we need to think about it. So suppose, again, there was this beautiful scene that I recently saw where this mother is asking, tell me honestly, if I find out on my own, you are going to be in big trouble. You better tell me who ate that chocolate cupcake. And the child says, I did not eat. And literally there is chocolate all over the face of the child. Now, should I trust the validity of what the child is saying, or should I trust the proof that I'm seeing on the child's face?
Obviously, proof.
Correct. So here, if the question is, do you think the child ate the cupcake? The answer should be yes. There is proof there. But if the question is, what did the child say about eating the cupcake? In that case, the child said, no, I did not eat the cupcake. So in that case, you need to see the validity and evaluate. What is the question? What has been asked of me? Not what does the passage say? Because if you read it blindly and say, okay, child said, I did not eat the cupcake. Okay, did the child eat the cupcake? No, the child did not eat the cupcake. Are you right? No, because the validity of the child, what the child said is zero because of the proof shown to you otherwise, right? And finally, transfer learning to future experience. Now, what happens is that when we read something, we often think of it as an individual task. It's not something that we're doing for our general life. It's this passage and then I'll forget all about it. That's not how we should be learning. If we give input in a way that we tell them, okay, so children, now remember, sometimes this can happen where valid information is given and some, twist is given. You have to pay attention to these things. Next time when they read something like that, children will remember it better. So this is not only about focusing their attention to the information given in this passage, but teaching them how to focus information so that they are able to get the right answers, so that they are able to comprehend well. Remember, comprehension does not only teach them how to read this passage, it teaches them how to read in general. Correct? And that is why comprehension skills are so important. In fact, if you think about it, everything that we read, including math, science, social science, we are comprehending things. Correct? All right. So now I told you that a few of the things I will talk to you a little more in detail when we talk about differentiated techniques. So what I mean by that is, whenever we are introducing comprehension, especially when we are changing the level, so maybe first and second grade, we have very simple comprehension. By fourth, fifth grade, we have a little more complicated, a little longer passages. Maybe by seventh or eighth grade, we would have questions which don't have direct answers. You have to think, you have to take prior information, you have to look for clues, those kind of things. So every time you are introducing a new kind or level of comprehension, you must make sure that every child in your class is engaged. So when I talked about maintaining engagement, these are a few things I would say you can do. Again, as an English teacher myself, I know that we don't have that much time. But what I would suggest is, if you do it for the first time or first few times, what will happen is the child will learn to get those techniques on their own. And it's more than anything, making sure to maintain the interest of the child. Once that has happened, it'll be a piece of cake. It's like putting in that extra effort for the first time, and then it'll become easier. So let's talk about what these techniques are. I'm sure as observant teachers, you've already seen some children are visual learners. For them, graphic organizers, concept maps, these will help. So if you are having, maybe you're teaching them a passage about some family and it's getting complicated, whose niece, that kind of thing, draw it up on the board, it'll help. In case, I'm sure you have also seen these passages where there is non-fiction and there is information given in, what is called pie charts or bar graphs, those kind of things, those kind of information will be very interesting to these visual learners, because for them, the moment they see it on a picture, they are like, okay, now I understand. Whatever was written in the passage, I have no clue what was said, but now that I can see it on a piece of paper, like visually, it becomes more interesting. So I'm not saying everything should be this way, but make sure that in maybe 6 or 7 passages that you do in a year, at least one of all of these should be covered. Second is auditory. So this you can do for every class, because as you are reading, just read aloud. Maybe sometimes you can have a recording which is reading the passage that is in their hand. For auditory learners, although the passage is in their hand, as if they hear somebody reading along with them, it becomes way more easy for them to focus. These are children who will lose interest if that is not done for them. Have discussions. So, for instance, in the beginning, when I asked about the schemas, there were some people who said that, he was selling something. I think Pushpalata ma'am said he was selling something. Somebody else assumed, by the way, good assumption. Somebody else assumed that this was sky and not ski. Maybe that's a spelling error. So those kind of things, it's okay to make mistakes, but let's discuss those, because there is a great research that I have read, which is so interesting, that apparently we are more likely to remember when we make a mistake and then we are corrected, rather than if we get it right the first time, because now it's fed in our memory. Oh, this is the mistake I made, and this is why I lost marks, or this is the mistake I made, and then we had this long discussion on it. So it gets fed in our memory better. So have discussions. It's okay to make mistakes. And sometimes I would say, I'm sure you've seen teachers do this, and I'm sure a lot of us also do this, where we deliberately say the wrong answer to check if the children are actually listening. And then there'll be somebody who says, no, ma'am, it's not this, it's this. And I love when that happens, because then they feel so happy to say that, oh, ma'am got it wrong, I got it right. And again, those are the things that they'll never forget. Coming to kinesthetic learners, children who like to do things physically. Now here, this might be a little difficult, but role play is not difficult to do. If it's a play, especially like an excerpt of a play that you're doing, make them do role play. It'll be easy for you to do it as well. Manipulatives, you will need extra resources. So manipulatives, does anybody know what manipulatives are? Let me test your knowledge. Does anyone know what manipulatives are?
Basically, manipulatives are the learning material used mostly in higher cases of mathematics. They call it as manipulatives. For example, if a child is using a pencil to do addition, few pencils to do addition, those are called as manipulatives.
Correct. So something they can literally physically touch and feel.
Exactly.
Can anybody guess how that could be relevant in reading comprehension? Because what are we going to bring all the story alive? And let me tell you, I am not talking about doing a skit every time we do a comprehension, because that's not practically possible.
Can a puppet be a manipulative?
Yes, it can. It absolutely can. There are a lot of other things as well where you will need a lot of preparation in advance. Let me be honest, manipulators are probably the most difficult to procure, because if we are providing, we need to provide for, see, I'm talking about it from a practical perspective. If we need to provide, we need to provide for the whole class. Is it practical? Is it possible? Things like that may be something that you would think about. But I'll tell you one thing that all of you can do. It won't be very difficult. Just maybe one set for the whole class. But what you can do is, a story is given. The story is then cut up into pieces. Once they read the story, cut up into pieces, mix it up, all the sentences, and let them physically order it out. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a simple task. And you would think, wait, that is very simple. Why does it matter? Why can't they just number it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instead of having strips of paper? For children who are kinesthetic learners, it is important for them to physically deal with these things. Please make that extra effort for the first few times, and that will help them remember, help them, every time, next time that they are just dealing with a normal passage on a sheet of paper, even in their head, they're going back to that beautiful experience that they had of physically manipulating the pieces of paper or matching A with B physically instead of just drawing a line. I know it seems like a silly thing to do, but in the beginning, if you introduce it that way, believe me, it makes a huge difference. You can even sometimes have, those cork boards that you have in class, the display boards. In that also, you can have, have a task maybe once in a week. You can do this. Very short, simple story. Put all the lines in a bunch at the end. Make a small little slit. Put all the lines together. Let the children do it on their own. Say that, okay, I put a new story today. Let me see, by the end of the day, I want to see it in the correct order. And believe me, it will usually be the children who are kinesthetic learners who will make an effort and try. And that way you don't have to find them. They're finding you. Correct? So make sure that a little bit of, going the extra mile really makes a difference. So people who are, visual learners, for them, colors also make a huge difference. So try and make it more colorful. Try and, as you can see, I did not make much of an effort in making the colors of this presentation, but I chose that, right? Sometimes just the choices that you make a huge difference, right? So sometimes you can do the comprehension on a slide. If you have the option of a smart board, please use a slide. There you can, highlight certain words, underline certain words. These things, little bit preparation, if you do in advance, it makes a huge difference. And finally, coming now, not to the children who have different, learning styles, but also different learning levels. So the advanced students, the children who are advanced in their learning, you can give them text comparison tasks. Here, what you can do is children will be able to compare different texts and do some critical analysis. So you can, instead of giving them one text, give a similar thing, maybe 2 poems, and tell them what is the similarity, what is the difference. They could say, okay, both are written by people at the same time period, but this poem seems to be more focused on the romanticizing of a certain incident. This poem focuses on the practical aspect of the same incident. Those kind of comparisons they can do. They can critically analyze what is given. Like I was telling you about the inference pieces. Now, children who are struggling, which is the one that we are usually focused on, give them scaffolded text, give them guided reading, and probably most important, make sure you use peer learning completely. Because believe me, they don't like to be pointed out again and again that, oh, you're not doing well, you're not doing well. Whereas if a friend is helping out, it doesn't feel like that much of, a whole class focusing on this one child. Have you finished? I have to wait for you to finish so that we can move on. It doesn't feel nice. Think about it from their perspective also sometimes. Yes. All right. Coming to the next part, which is integration of technology. For this, I'm going to just, once I'm done with the entire slide, I'll tell you for each one what is happening. Once I'm done with the entire slide, I'll give you the time. Please take a screenshot. I encourage all of you to use these techniques, or some of these are apps, some of these are websites. They are available. Please use them. They're very useful if you have the resources available in school, of course. So these sometimes we need interactive lessons for certain children, right? So for that, there are these two really good apps that are available, websites, Nearpod and Peer Deck. They provide interactive lessons so that the reading comprehension becomes interesting for them to read and then ask. There are questions. It's something that they can interact with. Then there is gamified assessment. So assessments, at least the FAs, you actually not even the FAs, even if you want to do this just for, you know, a class test, a fun kind of thing that they do. This could be one of the things that you do in your language lab, which is gamified assessment. Dialogue and show are two of the beautiful, gamified assessment sites that are available. Then there is collaborative responses, where this will help with the peer learning, where they do something together. Good evening, ma'am. Are you saying something? I feel like you're saying, but you're on mute. Sudesh Sharma is the name of the. Okay. So for collaborative, Padlet is a great resource that is available. Whereas if you're looking for videos, in that case, there is Flipgrid. For adaptive practice, that is, you know, adapting it to your learning, how will you, you know, use information that is available, where will you use? Read theory is a good option. And if you don't use any of this, throw this all to the dustbin. The one thing I want you all to at least explore, even whether you use it or not. In fact, I would say this for all, if there are any maths, science, social science teachers as well, please, please, please go explore this. There is something called Discovery Puzzle Maker. No problem. So Discovery Puzzle Maker, please use it. It is a great resource. You know how sometimes we have to sit, you know, to make things interesting. We say we don't have the time. This is something where you can make crosswords, you can make word searches, you can make math puzzles, Sudoku, you can make all kinds of things with the puzzle maker. You can customize the puzzles. It's so interesting. Children enjoy it like anything, and the learning happens automatically. If you learn anything from this entire session, please use this. That is the one thing I would definitely encourage you all to do. And how do you use this specifically for reading comprehension? Give the comprehension passage, and instead of giving, you know, those regular, from children's perspective, probably boring questions, you can give it as a puzzle. Give the questions, and the answers could be 1 or 2 words, and make it in a a proper crossword. All these kind of things will help them regain the interest they probably lost at a younger age. Let's not make it a task, but a fun activity to do, and then they will genuinely make an effort. And finally, coming to the most important part. Yes, we know all this. We know what to do. How do we do it? It's not like we don't want to do. We genuinely have trouble. And I do believe you, because I've been a teacher. I know I have the same experiences that you have had. So probably the biggest trouble maker for us, time. We don't have time. We have limited time. Within that time, we have to do so much. How do we do all of that? Correct? Agreed. I agree. But like I said at the beginning of the session, let's not be fault finders, but let's be solution finders, right? So can someone tell me what can we do in order to make sure that within this limited time that is available, let's do a brainstorming for the challenges. You find the solutions. I'll give you a few inputs later. So within the limited time, what exactly is it that we can do to make sure that we still get the students up to the mark at the comprehension level? What can be done?
They can look for the keywords. Like I said, we also tell the children to read the questions first. That is one of the way which they can go faster.
Correct.
And then also for smaller children, we tell them to go question wise, looking for the first two questions in the first paragraph, next two in the next paragraph, like that, so it
So
becomes a
that
little
way, again, focused learning.
focused learning.
So in the beginning, you might be actually thinking, okay, that sounds like spoon feeding. But if you think about it, they're little children. They're still being introduced. In the beginning, it's okay. And then later on, they will learn, okay, I saw that keyword. Let me look for it here.
Yes.
Correct? Great idea. Punita ma'am, I think, said smart learning as well. Yes, smart learning helps. Again, I'm not focusing too much on that because I don't know how many schools have the resources. If you have the resources, please do use it. It's very useful. And nowadays, even within whatever apps or things like that your school is using for your language lab, if you have one, for your regular smart learning as well, they have beautiful inputs for helping to make reading comprehension that much easier for all your children. Next is about mixed ability groups. I think I went into a lot of detail with that when I was talking about differentiated learning, but would anybody else want to add anything? Every child is at a different ability. So how do we choose the correct passage? How do we make sure that it is fair for both the upper end of the spectrum and the lower end of the spectrum? It's a range, right? The ability that of children that we have in our class, it's a range. So how do we make sure it's somewhere lying in the middle? How do we get over this challenge that we have a mixed ability group?
Ma'am, like we can, we can start with questions which are very, very like multiple choice kind of questions, which, give more space for the children to look at the ideas and, give their answers. And they don't have to specifically look for the answer. Now they can decide which is the answer. Then we can move on to, specific questions or questions which make them think about what choices they would like to make. And
Okay.
so that they can there can be a gradient of the questions for the children so that we can assess.
Okay, so at the beginning, I think I misunderstood. I thought you were saying that all the questions should be only.
No. I said they can be true and false and things like that. So even the people with who have a little children who are not able to frame answers, they can still give answers and score in those questions.
Correct. Also, not just scoring, but it gives them that confidence that, oh, I was
Yes.
able to answer 5 of the 10 questions.
Yeah, objective,
That's better than
true,
0 out of
false.
the 10. Yes,
Yes, true,
objectives.
false, objectives, and things like that. We add fill in the blanks, so where they find it easier to
Correct. So again, by the way, I must say sometimes I might get a little more high school focused. It's because I have taught high school more, but yes, this is absolutely important that we make sure that we are not only catering to one ability level, and it's not that difficult to do. Just make sure, remember, when we do our blueprint, we have difficulty levels as well. Make sure that all the difficulty levels are catered to, and that's it. So think about the blueprint. Even if you're doing a simple small short comprehension passage, even in class, or forget passage, even if you're reading a lesson, you're asking questions, ask some difficult questions, some simple questions, ask some this or that kind of questions orally. It preps them for the comprehension they will do eventually. Next is lack of resources. Like I told you, I kept saying throughout that everybody might not have the same kind of resources. So I think I have given you enough that even if you have just a printer in school, you can get things done. So I don't think you should have that excuse, especially for comprehension, because this is not like saying that, oh, we don't have a lab in school and that's why I cannot teach chemistry properly. It's not a non-negotiable, right? So let's, again, like I said, find solutions. And finally, assessment. Now, many a times I see teachers saying that, oh, we have to take exams, we have FAs to do, we have essays to do. How are we going to spend time doing comprehension with them? What do you say to that? Before you ask me that question, I'm asking you the same question. What do you say to that? Sir, as a principal, would you agree? Do you think that this is a complaint that you get? We don't have time from all these exams that we have to keep.
Can you kindly repeat the question?
I was saying that many a times teachers often say that we have so many FAs and essays to take care of that probably in my list of priorities, the reading comprehension, which is kind of the least important, falls to the bottom.
But it's the wrong thing, no? Whatever it is, we have to have reading comprehension.
Correct. No, what I'm saying is that is an excuse that teachers often give.
So they can't give that excuse. What I believe is that.
Yeah, they can't, absolutely. But I think one thing that I've noticed is that when we say it is unseen comprehension, a lot of teachers, no, not a lot of teachers, I'm wrong there. I think some teachers kind of see it as, oh, since it's unseen, I can't prepare children for it. So let them do it on their own. Let's see what they have learned. Well, you haven't taught, so you can't expect them to learn. Correct? So what do you think? Do you think there is so much assessment pressure that we can't teach reading comprehension? You can be honest, teachers. If you agree,
No,
also.
ma'am, we can include them in our FAs. We can have one portion where we are giving them a comprehension where we can assess whether they have learned, and we can do it in our activity period or a bagless day. We can give them worksheets and we can make them do it together. They can do it in groups as an activity, like you said about that story writing. So we can just, and different children can try out different sections of a comprehension. They can do it as a group.
Correct. I think there are a lot of teachers agreeing with you, and I think that's the beauty of SMTTC as well. Here, I would say that we have all the sincere teachers here, right? So yes, a few answers I would like to read out. Lavanya ma'am said, yes, we can teach. It's not like just because there's assessment pressure, we stop teaching them. We need to teach them how to frame the answers as well. Great point, ma'am. Circle time we can use. Again, remember whatever oral conversation also you have with them, that is preparing them for the reading comprehension that they're doing. Don't think of this as two separate things. There's always a way integrated in your lessons as stated by you. Exactly. That's probably the most important point that I would have said if nobody had pointed out. If we plan in a proper way, we can. Basically, see, all of us have the same amount of time. It's not like a teacher who's a very effective teacher has some extra few hours in class. In fact, in my experience, the teachers who are spending extra time in school, or the teachers who are, taking other classes, taking their PT class, taking their art class and teaching, are probably the ones who are not very well versed with time management. It's not like they have extra time. They need extra time. It's just that the time that they have, they probably did not manage it well. Plan properly in advance. Use comprehension as an FA as well, because if you remember, an FA is nothing but assessment for learning, right? It's not just assessment of learning, it's assessment for learning as well. Use 100%, I would say, every time you're teaching a lesson, use it to teach comprehension as well, because at the end of the day, what is a lesson if not reading comprehension? Every single lesson you teach as a language teacher is a reading comprehension opportunity. Use it as a reading comprehension. In fact, I would say again, I'm going back to high school, but high school stages, we often don't read the entire lesson one by one, right? We don't read it line by line. Assign them, okay, tomorrow you are going to read the first 2 pages and come. And give them interesting activities. First time, maybe some children might not read. Seeing the activities, the next day, everybody is going to come reading because, oh, nice activity we'll do. We'll do, a teacher will ask us a quiz. Teacher will give us nice, crossword to do. Or teacher will have this picture which I can complete only if I have the answers to these questions. These kind of things really make a difference. Make them interested, and then the comprehension will become easier. I think that is all I have from my end. But now comes the participating part. I want you to kind of get creative. I want you to think of a 15-minute comprehension lesson plan, not a very big passage. Think of what kind of passage you want. Think of any one strategy you want to teach. Identify like a specific lesson that how will you implement it. And think about what is your success metric. Remember at the beginning I talked about that ski mask thing. Yeah, ski mask. Nobody knew what a ski mask is. Then how am I going to understand? So those kind of questions you should not have. And finally, how will you provide student feedback? I want to hear at least one interesting, out of the box, creative way that you will teach reading comprehension if you've learned anything from this. For this action plan that you're doing, forget practicality. Throw that out of the window for now. Let your creative juices flow. Think, if I had everything in the world, all the resources provided to me, what can I do? I'll give you, since it's just a 15-minute lesson plan, I think 4 minutes is enough to plan it. I will not let you go till I have at least one lesson plan that I hear. I just want to hear it orally. So any strategy that you want to teach, interesting implementation, any age, by the way, any age that you teach, any grades that you teach, any language that you teach as well. I'm assuming that there are other language teachers as well. Hindi. I'm saying Hindi because that is common to all the states, but whatever your local language, I'm fine with anything. Please come forward.
Good evening, Jyoti ma'am.
Good evening.
I would like to say how I asked the students to go and read the questions, read the passage and create questions. And the next day they will be asking questions to each other. In a like a quiz, and then the whole passages or whichever passage or page number, is now understood by the whole class.
That's beautiful. And you know what happens? I would like to point out one great thing. What happens in this technique is, because you are trying to frame questions for others, you are reading the passage in so much detail. Because somewhere or the other that competitive spirit comes in, right? And that is a great thing. Use it to your advantage. Great idea, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wants to share?
Jyoti ma'am, even I think if I'm teaching some kind of a text, I would like to give it, I'd like to make, people sit in groups. And then I would like to give them different section of the story. And I would also like to give them graphic organizers where I would like two children to, take out the different, the sequence of events which is happening in there. And then I can have another child who's picking up the vocabulary, and then there can be the fourth child who is trying to question, make one or two questions on the same text which they are studying. So in the same team there are four people who are doing different tasks, and then they can come up as a team for assessing what they have studied. They can come and present their organizer to the rest of the group. So in this way, I will move forward. I'll move forward in all, every group which is coming up is going to take my chapter forward. And
great.
That way, I think I'll be able to do it.
And again, like I like the fact that you mentioned it as a chapter, because then you are not giving some extra time to this. This is happening as you are teaching your chapter itself. So that time concern goes away. Great point, ma'am.
Sometimes then when we are reading, I think when we are teaching novels and all, it becomes really challenging to do everything, in the class because you possibly can't. So that's when we give these sections to the
Correct.
children and it really becomes very, easy. And somebody might choose a role play to do. For example, you gave us that list of things to do. Some might choose something auditory or visual or kinesthetic. So that becomes very liberating for the children to understand it their own way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anyone else? All right. So with that, I am done with my presentation. If you have any questions for me, you can go ahead and ask. Otherwise, are there any questions? All right. Hopefully, I've done a good job of helping, simplify reading comprehension, how to, make
Hello.
sure. Yes, somebody is saying something.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Lavanya.
Actually, I'm teaching for class one, and I just want to suggest one way, like teaching in a flip way method will be the best thing for the children. Flip method, like creating their own story and asking the questions by themselves. They should ask the question, and they should also get answer for that question. So
Correct.
this will be the best way to teach
For that
comprehension.
age. Absolutely. And again, like I was saying that, two things I think I was focusing on a little today is one, making sure that their interest is maintained. Second, giving them that little something to celebrate. Oh, I got this. And both of those things will happen with the method that you're suggesting. Great point. All right. There is no feedback form as such, ma'am. I don't know who asked that question, but you can provide any feedback that you have right now. Yeah, sir, there's somebody who's asking if we can share the techniques. Can we share the PPT?
Yeah, kindly share the group link with them, so that they can join the webinar group.
Sure, I'll do that.
Yeah. So those who wish to stay informed about our sessions, Jyoti ma'am will be sharing the group webinar groups link with you people. You people can join the webinar group, and especially in the month of March, we have a session every day from Monday to what do we say, like what do we say, Sunday. All the 7 days we have webinars in this month of March. So you can make yourself be available from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock every evening to join the webinars. And coming to the other part, like the people who wish to grab a certificate for this particular session, as you know, SNTTC provides free training in most of the cases. But if you wish to grab a certificate, you need to pay 50 rupees towards the certificate charges. And the people who wish to grab a certificate need to send the amount to the number which I am typing in the chat box. 990-892-5730. 990-892-5730. This is the number. You can either do Google Pay, Phone Pay, or Paytm, but ensure that you are sending the screenshot of your payment to the same phone number through WhatsApp. Also, while you are sending, mention your name clearly, Mr., Miss, or Mrs., whatever you want your title as, and your name properly, and within 24 hours, maximum by tomorrow morning, or else within 24 hours, you will be getting your certificate. Kindly do not send after 2 or 3 days. It will be difficult because we'll be having many sessions like this. We cannot remember. Ensure that if you want a certificate, you are sending the money today itself and you will get in 24 hours. Tomorrow again, we will have another session. So if you send a if you send the money after that, we cannot, we get confused in generating the certificate. That is a great difficulty that we face. So this is how it is. The number is 990-892-5730. This is the number. And Jyoti ma'am has already shared the link of the WhatsApp group in the chat box. You can join our WhatsApp group to stay informed about the sessions. And I request Jyoti ma'am to give few insights into the Train the Trainers course, which is going to start from Monday.
So I'm sure that all of you as teachers, you're well versed with teaching, right? That's not the difficult part. When it comes to training, we are not dealing with children, right? We are dealing with adults and we are dealing with our colleagues for all practical purposes. So I felt, I remember when sir had told me about the sessions, I felt a little intimidated, thinking that, will I be good enough? Will this be fine? Should I do this? And believe me, probably the best decision of my life, because the way hand holding has happened with sir, and if any of you has said in the group, I found a few people saying that it was an informative session, it was a good session. All thanks to sir, because seriously, the amount of guided information given to us and practical information, because it's not like, okay, here is your set of books, read this, or this is the slide, read this and figure it out on your own. It's never that way. We are taught how to do the trainings. We are practically doing the trainings. There are every session is different, and there are so many fun activities that we do, the discussions that we have, the fun kind of, if not anything else, the fun banter that we share with each other during the sessions while learning so much. It is beautiful, and I would highly recommend all of you to join the Trainer session. And sir is, I think, sir, the seats are filling up fast. Am I right?
Yes, yes. We have 5 more seats only left this time. Yes, because as you know, we take only 10 to 11 people into each batch because we need independent, wherein we give individual attention because we are trainers. We can't take, risk. So individual attention has to be given. So we take only 10 to 11 participants, and still there are 5 seats which are filling tonight. So those who wish to join the the trainer session and become resource persons like us, not only in private sector but also with the recognized boards and all, can join the session, which is going to start from Monday. That's how it is. Thank you so much, ma'am. And those who wish to know much about the course can text me on WhatsApp. You will be getting the information about it. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, everyone.
I wish we can
it's the same number.
One query. The number that you had just stated, sir, 9908925730. Is this the number that we can get in touch with you with regards to the trainer?
Exactly.
Thank you, sir. We'll be doing so. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ma'am, I'm so sorry I joined a bit late. I missed certain strategies. I take grades 9, 10, and 11. So it was some things that you shared was nice, but I missed it. So the link that you have shared, I can go back and view the entire session.
I will.
We'll be posting it on YouTube, ma'am. Make a note of the YouTube channel, Sri Narayani Teacher Training Center. So by tomorrow, the recording will be posted over there. So you can see the recording once again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kant. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Good evening, everyone. Have a nice day.